I'm Rob Licuria, senior editor at Gold Derby, here with John Hoffman, co-creator and producer on Only Murders in the Building. Firstly, John, congratulations once again on your Emmy nominations for Only Murders Season 2,
Uh,
which we still have.
I know it's very confusing this year. Thank you, Rob.
it's
Thank you so
it's
much.
very confusing. I love Season 3. It's whimsical, funny, but I think most importantly for a show that's hitting Season 3, it's fresh. Looking back to when the season was being mapped out and written, was there much anxiety about matching or exceeding the success of the first two seasons?
That's a great question. I was just listening to Mimi. I've been loving all of these conversations, but the anxiety is perpetual, no matter what, in many ways, because you're always questioning, you're always sort of like examining to find what feels like the best choices. And I don't really tend to think about last season when sort of putting together and mapping out a new season with the writers and with our producing team. I really do love the process of grappling with it and grasping at the end of it all what it all wants to say when you get to it all. So it's a big process in putting a season together. I'm in the midst of it right now on a season 4. But in this one, certainly anxiety came in the thrill of having some extraordinary new cast members. And so there was a feeling of, oh my God, we really might have to step it up here in a certain way that I felt underneath everything. But it was also that opportunity was so great. And I guess I decided early on with that extraordinary opportunity to sort of say, let's just triple down here and go for something of scale that we haven't tried to hit before and be a bit ambitious. And everything about the setup was theatrical in its nature. So a heightened ambition felt of a piece with what I was hoping to make happen with the story and with the execution of the season for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the addition of some great actors on this season didn't hurt. Paul Rudd, particularly, but there's this other female actress. She's a small independent,
Yeah.
Meryl something. No, I'm kidding.
Gonna
So
make a good way for herself, I think, after this. Yeah.
yeah, she's gonna go places, that one. I know it's so cliche to rave about Meryl Streep, but honestly, after everything she has done in her career, this is some of her best work. Like she really, and that's
Yeah.
a really high bar. What was that like, having Meryl Streep in your show and really hitting it out of the park?
I can't even talk about it really because I couldn't really think too hard on it. And the greatest, in order to do it, honestly, because if I had that grand person there, it would be very challenging in many ways. But I do think she has this wonderful gift of popping that grand bubble for everyone she works with in this very beautiful, real way. And she really looks to connect, and she's very clear about it when she's connecting. And that feels reassuring. And the way she understood the character from the first moment I zoomed with her and shared it, and had this remarkable synchronicity moment with her on the character. And I described how we started the season in an episode that I was going to direct and I had in my mind for a while about how we introduced her character on a stage. But being as a 10-year-old girl, first in her uh, first Broadway visit with her mother from St. Louis. And I walked her through on a Zoom, just this 10-year-old girl seeing a production of No Strings in the 60s. And I didn't get any further than that. And she said, I saw that production with Diane Carroll. And I said, you what? And because it was a nice hit, but it wasn't like everyone, no, not a lot of people saw that production. And she said, I think I was about 10. I said, well, I had done the math on that one, but I was very much like, oh my God. And then she said, and then in the Zoom, she said, and then I'll never forget it because Diane sang this song and she started to sing the song that opens our season. And I said, okay, I'm going to pass out, Meryl, because I need you to stop this for a minute and understand I'm going to send you episode 1. after we hang up this Zoom, and you're going to see on page one the lyric you just sang to me now on page one of our script. And so that felt like a great comfort to have the connection that I need in my own experience of working. I need to know that I understand every beat of everything, certainly to direct, certainly to lead a room and find our way there. But to have that communication with her, along with our incredible trio and Paul and everybody else, everybody just was in the same water as we moved downriver on this one, and it just felt extraordinary.
And then also, I mean, by the way, that's an amazing story.
It's great.
Death Rattle Dazzle journey
Yeah.
for this season. The journey that this musical took over the season was so interesting to me because the music played such a massive role. Like Siddhartha Khosla's music on the show is so divine, but this was another added element which just gives you even more potential for chaos and things not working out. So what was that anxiety like, bringing the music in?
Thank God for everybody musically on this show. And I mean, really, Sid Khosla, I couldn't say enough about, as you know, how I feel about Sid and his work. It's stunning. And adding in Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, which was a remarkable lucky stroke, thanks to a co-writer of episode 1 of season 3, Sass Goldberg, who happened to know them. And in the first meeting in our writers' room, she said, "Who are you thinking for composers?" I said, "Well, I have a list, but there's at the top of the list are Pasek and Paul, and they just feel right." And she said, "Oh, let me text them." And she texted them, and we weren't done with our first day in the writers' room, and Pasek and Paul had said, "We're in." And I was like, "What?" And so from that moment, that became the most collaborative, amazing process with them, where I could really walk them through the stories of what we were telling. The important part of introducing this musical was that it serviced our storytelling, and it didn't take us out of Only Murders and our narrative that we needed. The music had, and the play itself, this insane leap of Death Rattle Dazzle, had to still tie in thematically and tie into the stories we were telling for our characters and the mystery. And so they understood that in a way that we could have these Zooms with each other. And I would say, okay, it's a song about the Pickwick triplets. I mean, obviously, you know, and it's ascending, and we'd walk through all of that. And then they would go off and they brought these incredible other people with them: Sarah Bareilles, Mark Shaman, Scott Whitman, Michael R. Jackson. I mean, it was incredible. And then what I would get back were these stunning pieces that felt so beyond anything I could have ever dreamed of. So it was a season of manifesting or just miraculous touchstone connections where everybody felt like they stepped up in some way. And at the bottom of it, though, thematically, I didn't realize it for a while, but again, like looking for the confidence of being able to write this thing, being able to sort of lead this charge on this thing in some ways. I always need the internal connection to it. And I guess I didn't realize until later that I had lost my mother a year before. And it took so long for me to realize, oh, underneath all of this is this theme of mothers and protection and all of that thing that we come around to fully, certainly in the back half of the season. And so in some ways that feeling was permeating or emanating in some ways from me in this way. And I think also it's an easily relatable one, certainly with Meryl, certainly with Selena, certainly, you know, I think the touchstones of all of that. Linda Emond, who was genius as I mean, and yeah, so sorry, I'm blabbing, but yes, all of that tied into the music, tied into the storytelling and everything else.
And then final question, who was responsible for that final twist? Because I was gutted when I thought it was who I thought it was. And then when I realized who it was, I was still very, very upset about the whole thing. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. That's crazy.
Yeah, I love that character. I love that person who plays that character. Spoil Rob. But yeah, that was an ingenious notion from one of our producers, brilliant producers along the way. My right-hand guy here on the team was Jess Rosenthal. And I remember when he came into my office and said, "So here's a thought." And I was like, uh-oh, I really like it and I hate it all at once, which is a very good thing. And yet the really like it was so clear for me because of where it could go in a new direction for us, in a potential hopeful season 4 at that time. But it felt very, very specific in that way. So off we are.
Wow, I can't wait. In the meantime, we're going to bring you back for our panel shortly. Thank you, John, for your insights today.
Thanks, Rob.